Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And today I want to talk to you about Shantae for the Game Boy Color. Some things up front. I played the Nintendo 3DS eShop version, and I did use save states in that one because those are available, and it was hard. Part of it was that it was hard, but also because there's a glitch in the game in this version where sometimes it's been known to crash when you pick up a certain collectible, and so when you're picking those up, every time, at least before those, if you save state before those, or just save state at all of the save spots, you can still play it authentically. I kind of cheesed it because I was getting impatient and frustrated, and I suck. So keep that in mind. I'm not forgetting that I did that. I'm still trying to keep that, in mind for what I did, because for a long while I didn't do that. But near the end of the game, I definitely heavily did that, so be aware of that. If you want to see a written review, I have that as well linked in the description, so you can check that out before, after, instead of this, whatever you want to do. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, though. So let's I don't know, whatever. So Shantae is a 2D platformer adventure game. I guess you'd call it a Metroidvania. Some people get angry when you say that term, so whichever way you want to say it, it is like that. I guess the basic story is that you play as Shantae, who is a half-genie and the guardian of this town, when a pirate by the name of Risky Boots starts attacking the town. And you find out that as you're going to defend the town and stop her, that she steals this thing that your Uncle Mimic found, which is a steam engine. Or did he make it? I forget. It says near the beginning. You'll probably see in the footage. And she's going to use it probably for evil things because she's the bad guy of the game. And you also hear that there are these 4 magical stones that can be used to possibly enhance the power of that steam engine. And so in an effort to try and stop that, you have to go out and seek out these magical stones and get them before Risky Boots does. And that's the main plot of the game, essentially. You start off in the town where you go and you can talk to some NPCs. Every town has... because there are multiple towns in the game, but every town basically has an item shop where you can go and buy stuff. And a bathhouse where you can go and heal up, a save room where you can go and save your game, and some specific NPC that's like your friend that will tell you some helpful stuff for where you should go next and what you should do next. And then usually some other thing, typically some kind of mini game that you can do to get extra gems, which you use to buy stuff in the item shops. And around the town, there's just people you can talk to for information on what you should do, or just flavor text. And then you can start going out and doing your adventure, which you can run and jump and attack by whipping your hair. You can duck. You can crawl. Later on, you can actually buy some items to give you some more advanced combat moves. And you can use a lot of these consumables that you can buy in the shops, things to heal you up or use as offensive weapons or some defensive weapons. Just some items also just for a bit of utility as well. They work in a variety of situations. And you have to select them from your menu and then hit up and attack whatever to use them. As how they work. The whole world is a big interconnected map. It's rather linear. So basically, if you go all the way left or all the way right, you'll end up back where you started eventually, provided you can go all the way that way. With a few other slightly branching paths and stuff. There's some dungeons and towns and caves for you to explore along the way. There's a lot of stuff for you to collect. You can get heart holders that'll increase your maximum health, and you can get these baby warp squids, which you can give to the warp squid huts, which are in all of the towns. Should have mentioned that. And if you give 4 baby warp squids to the mother warp squids in a town, then you'll learn a dance, because you're also a belly dancer, and also hot one at that. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing that out there. That's not necessarily in the game details, but she is hot. But like, you can get a dance to that. Whenever you perform it, you can warp back to that town. So you can pick whichever town you want. All the squids are interchangeable. But once you put them into, one of the towns, they're locked in there. What else? There's like a day-night cycle going on too, where you can basically, like, at night these fireflies show up, which you can collect and get a thing. You can get something if you collect all of them, essentially. And they only show up at night in certain places. Also, the enemies are tougher at night. They take twice as much damage to kill. And there's also one town, which is like a traveling one, the zombie caravan, which you can only find at night. And it moves around, so it's like basically a moving town that only shows up at nighttime. What was the other thing? The other thing is that there's different NPCs in the towns, depending on if it's day or night, to get different text and, like, different helpful hints or flavor text or whatever they're saying. Basically, yeah, that's most of it, aside from actually going to the dungeons, which the dungeons are usually just these big labyrinths, usually some kind of save outside of the dungeons as well, which are the only places you'll find the save guys are in the towns and outside the dungeons. And, like, the way it also kind of works is that, like, with your lives, I'll just bring this up, that basically you have a certain number of lives. If you lose all of your health, you lose a life, and then you're reset to the beginning of that screen with the same amount of progress that you had going through it. However, if you fall down a bottomless pit or hit spikes, it's an instant death. And if you lose all your lives, you go back to your last save. So that's what those are there for. In the dungeons, you're going around, you're trying to find these keys to open doors. You're fighting enemies, maybe some mini-bosses, and solving some puzzles in there. There's some mild puzzles happening. And inside of each of these dungeons, you'll find a trapped genie. You can save the genie, and then they'll teach you a magical dance that will transform you into a different creature. And the different creatures have their own innate abilities that'll help you explore the rest of the dungeon and ultimately beat it, and then help you find more secrets and do more progression in the overworld as well after that. There's also these talismans you can find throughout the game that'll actually give each of these forms some extra abilities. And basically there's a boss at the end of each dungeon as well. So that's kind of that sort of formula going on. What's the other thing? I guess the dancing itself is basically you hit select, and then you can hit up, down, left, right, A or B on beat. And if you do that, it's that's mean you just have to do it with a rhythm, and like if you do the right sequence of the dances you learned, you'll do the specific things. That's how you do those. But time doesn't stop, nor does you're not invulnerable while you're doing it, so you have to kind of be careful with that. But that's basically all of the gameplay. Is go through and like do the dungeon, find out where to go next, do some exploring, get some stuff. And keep moving forward as best you can. That's pretty much it. It's fun. It's a fun game. I think there's a lot of stuff to like about it. I think the gameplay is decent. It's got a lot of very fluid animation. It's very colorful. There's actually a lot of color in the game. It looks great. Like the general style of it, the Metroidvania kind of thing, I enjoy. So like I liked doing that stuff here too. Getting the different transformations to help you explore, especially the dungeons themselves, just to play, were super fun. To do some puzzles, do some combat, and then get this new ability that was really exciting. It's oh, look at all the stuff that it's going to open up to me when I get out of here too. This is going to be great. So there's like a lot of fun stuff to do with that. The dancing mechanic's kind of neat. I already mentioned that Shantae's a babe, so there's that. And I mean, like, there's plenty in here to enjoy, and it's pretty good for like it's pretty impressive, I guess, for a Game Boy Color game. The kind of things that it's doing, and the way that it handles it pretty well. I think there's a little more depth in here than maybe I'm necessarily appreciating as well, but like, there seems to be a lot of polish on this game, and it shows. I feel like most of my downsides, my gripes with this game are a little more nitpicky, but I don't know. The big one is just that this game is really fucking hard. Like, it's not like super hard, but it's kind of bullshit in some ways. It's kind of like a little dated even for the time it came out, I think. Like, the thing with the system of lives is annoying, where it's like you die and it's like you get reset to the screen is whatever, but like then if you get a game over, you have to go back to your last save, which is only going to be outside of a dungeon or in a town, which is probably going to be a lot of backtracking. Early on, it's super rough. Like, near the end of the game, it's like basically way easier, and near the beginning of the game, when it should be easy, it's way harder, because you don't really know how to play yet. You don't know, the frames and like when you can attack and like how frequently during your animations, and you don't necessarily know what all the hitboxes are and what all the enemies do, so it's very tough to like adjust to that. It's just a lot of like, you don't have much health either, so you can't make too many mistakes, otherwise you're dying, you're going backwards, you're losing all your fucking progress. Your best bet is usually to probably either take it painfully slow or to grind for a long time and get a bunch of healing items early on so you can make that progress without dying too much. I don't know, like the instant death stuff is especially like obnoxious with this, where it's like, maybe you should just take away like a heart, like in later games when he's like, oh, I hit these spikes, like I just lose a heart and I restart on that screen. You don't necessarily just flat out die. That's kind of rough. And I feel like that's definitely like an old school sort of archaic design for this. For the time this came out, even, that seems pretty dated and brutal. And there's no map. Why the fuck is there no map? That's obnoxious as well. I'd like there to just be maps so I could tell where the fuck I am. That would be very helpful. The dancing thing is a little annoying, just in the sense that like you have to, like, the timing on it feels a little off. And also, you can't like do a dance on the fly, because enemy will just come and hit you if they're about to hit you. You have to like get to a safe spot to go do a dance, or do it super quickly, and if you fuck it up because you're trying to do it too fast, well, then they're probably just going to hurt you. You only have a small window of invulnerability, like, as you're transforming. Not before you transform, and not after you transform. So if an enemy just goes over and stands on top of you during your transformation, you're just going to get hurt right when it finishes. I don't know, that's, like, really annoying, too. So you have to really get used to the way all these little ins and outs work, and it's kind of annoying to try and deal with that. Especially early on, when it's so unforgiving. Again, like, without save states, the end of this game would have been such a fucking slog. Would have been so frustrating to do, and not really hard so much as just very repetitive and tedious, which I don't think is necessarily a good way to make your game seem challenging when it isn't, in those areas. So I'll definitely say that. I think that's maybe most of like what was annoying me, though, is that there's maybe some other little things here or there, but that was maybe just the biggest thing, is that it's a little too rough for the wrong reasons. So Shantae is a game that I would recommend for people who are already fans of maybe the other Shantae games, so they want to see where the series started. Like, I'm glad that I got to see this and see, like, oh, this is what, like, the first Shantae, this is what it was like. That's cool. Definitely, you can see the groundwork for a lot of cool stuff there, and that's neat. And if you're just a big fan of like Game Boy Color and you want some more games for that, this is a pretty good Game Boy Color game. So, like, I could recommend it to them as well. Especially like, if physically, I believe it's one of those that's pretty pricey to get now because it's kind of rare. Because it didn't do so hot when it first came out. So getting the 3DS, Virtual Console version is probably what you want to do, because it's worth that much. It's only a few bucks on there. But I wouldn't really recommend it just to general Metroidvania fans, or just Or for like the I forgot what I was gonna say for a sec. Or for people who are just looking to get into the Shantae series, I wouldn't recommend this to be your first Shantae game, because it is a bit rough and a little primitive. But I mean, like I don't know, like if you want to do that, you can maybe check out Risky's Revenge. Is probably where you want to start, which I'll review probably next time. And if nothing else, the thing to take away from this is that apparently Shantae was just always hot, and like I am very okay with that. I am a-okay with Shantae being a hottie.